Ryan and I had been married for 5 years. We were happy together, but sometimes life felt predictable. Our days were filled with routine, work, dinner, sleep, and the same conversations over and over. The passion between us was still there, but it felt buried under everyday life. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Ryan walked into the kitchen with a small smile on his face. He held up his phone. "Jake invited us to a party this weekend," he said. Jake was one of Ryan's closest friends. They had known each other since college, and he was always full of energy. He and his wife, Lisa, were known for hosting fun gatherings. Their parties were never boring, and they always had something exciting planned. "A party?" I asked, stirring the pasta sauce on the stove. "What kind of party?" Ryan shrugged. "Just a fun get-together. Some of our friends will be there. Good food, music, drinks." I glanced at him, noticing the way he looked at me. There was something in his eyes, something playful, maybe even a little mischievous. "Are you sure it's just a simple party?" I asked with a raised eyebrow. He chuckled. "Of course, but it might be different. Jake mentioned that it's going to be special." I wasn't sure what he meant, but I decided not to overthink it. Lately, I had been feeling restless, like I needed something new, something exciting. Maybe this party was exactly what we needed. "All right," I said, smiling. "Let's go." The night of the party arrived, and I stood in front of the mirror, choosing what to wear. I wanted to look good, to feel beautiful. After some thought, I picked a black dress, one that hugged my body in all the right places. It wasn't too revealing, but it made me feel confident. As I adjusted my hair, Ryan walked into the room. His eyes traveled over me, and a slow smile spread across his face. "You look stunning," he whispered, stepping behind me and placing his hands on my waist. His touch was warm, familiar, and safe. I met his gaze in the mirror. "It's just a party," I said. But deep down, something about this night felt different. Ryan leaned down, pressing a soft kiss on my neck. "I know," he murmured, "but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy it." His words sent a small shiver through me, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, or maybe it was just the excitement of doing something out of the ordinary. When we arrived at Jake and Lisa's house, I immediately noticed the atmosphere. The lights were dim, giving the room a warm glow. Soft music played in the background, and there was a hum of quiet laughter and conversation. The air smelled of wine, perfume, and something else. Something thrilling. I recognized most of the guests. These were people we had met through Ryan's friends, married couples like us, all smiling and relaxed. But there was something in the way they looked at each other, something knowing. Jake greeted us with a wide grin, handing Ryan a glass of whiskey and offering me a glass of wine. "Glad you made it," he said. "Of course," Ryan replied. "Wouldn't miss it." Lisa appeared beside Jake, looking as elegant as ever. "We wanted to make this night special," she said, her voice smooth and inviting. "I hope you both enjoy yourselves." I sipped my wine, letting the warm liquid calm my nerves. Ryan and I found a cozy spot on the couch, watching as people chatted and laughed. "Do you feel it?" I whispered to Ryan. He looked at me, tilting his head slightly. "Feel what?" I hesitated, glancing around. "The energy in this room? It's different." Ryan smiled, reaching for my hand. "Just relax," he said softly. "Let's enjoy the night." I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the nervous excitement bubbling inside me. Maybe this was just a normal party. Maybe I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew this night was going to change everything. Ryan and I stepped further into the house, the sounds of soft music and quiet laughter surrounding us. The warm glow of the dimmed lights created an intimate atmosphere, making everything feel more personal, more private. The air carried the scent of wine, expensive perfume, and something else I couldn't quite name, a mix of excitement and anticipation. I held on to my glass of wine, sipping slowly as I took in the scene. Couples stood in small groups, talking and laughing, their conversations quiet but full of hidden meaning. There was something different about the way people interacted here. The looks lasted a little too long. The touches lingered just a bit more than usual. It was subtle, but I noticed it. Ryan's hand rested gently on my lower back as he guided me through the room. He seemed completely at ease, greeting old friends and exchanging a few jokes with Jake. I watched him closely, noticing the way his eyes scanned the room as if he were taking everything in just as I was. Lisa appeared beside me, her deep red dress hugging her curves perfectly. She had always been confident, the kind of woman who owned every room she walked into. "I'm glad you came," she said, smiling warmly. "We wouldn't miss it," I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure what we had walked into. Lisa sipped her drink and leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "I hope you both are open to new experiences tonight." I blinked, feeling my heartbeat quicken. "New experiences?" I repeated, unsure if I had misunderstood her meaning. Before she could answer, Jake clinked his glass, calling for attention. The room quieted, and all eyes turned toward him. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice smooth and full of confidence. "As you all know, these gatherings are about more than just good food and great company. They're about trust, love, and adventure." A few people exchanged knowing smiles, while others, like me, remained silent, waiting to hear more. Jake's gaze moved across the room before he continued. "Tonight, we have the chance to explore something different, something exciting. We all love our partners, but sometimes stepping outside our usual boundaries can bring us even closer to them." The way he spoke made my stomach flutter with nervous anticipation. My fingers tightened slightly around my glass as I glanced at Ryan. He wasn't shocked. If anything, he looked curious. Jake smiled. "For those of you who are open to it, we invite you to experience passion from a new perspective by sharing it with someone else." A soft murmur spread through the room, some people laughing lightly, others exchanging glances with their partners. I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks. I had expected a fun night, maybe a little flirting. But this was something else entirely. I turned to Ryan, my heart pounding. "Did you know about this?" I whispered. He met my gaze, his expression calm but intrigued. "I had an idea," he admitted, "but I wanted to see how you felt before saying anything. I couldn't tell if I was nervous, excited, or both." The idea of being with someone else, even for just one night, was something I had never considered before. My entire life, I had believed that love and desire belonged only to one person at a time, but as I looked around the room, at the way couples held hands, whispered in each other's ears, and smiled with understanding, I realized this was different. This wasn't about betrayal. It was about trust. Lisa stepped closer to me, her voice soft. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to," she said. "This is about choice, freedom. If you're not comfortable, you can just enjoy the evening and watch." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Could I really do this? Could I let go just for one night and experience something completely new? I looked at Ryan, searching his face for answers. His blue eyes held nothing but warmth. He reached for my hand, intertwining his fingers with mine. "It's just an experience," he murmured. "No secrets, no guilt. Just us, exploring something, together." My heart pounded in my chest as I took a deep breath. The night was just beginning, and I had a choice to make. The room was filled with a quiet hum of conversation and soft laughter. but my mind was too focused on what had just been said. I held my glass tightly, my fingers wrapped around the cool stem as Jake's words echoed in my head. He had suggested something I never thought I would hear at a gathering like this, an exchange, a night of shared passion between partners. I turned to Ryan, my heart beating faster than normal. He looked calm, almost amused, as if he had expected this. Meanwhile, I was still trying to process it. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. I swallowed hard and nodded slowly. I just didn't expect this." Lisa stepped closer, her eyes warm and understanding. "You don't have to decide right away," she said softly. "This is about trust, about stepping into something new only if you feel ready." I let out a shaky breath. "Have you done this before?" Lisa smiled knowingly. "A few times. And let me tell you, it's not what most people think. It's not about replacing your partner or doing something behind their back. It's about connection, about opening up to something different while still holding on to the love you already have." I looked around the room, noticing how some couples leaned in close, whispering to each other. A few were already exchanging glances with others, quiet signals passing between them. There was no awkwardness, no jealousy, just a shared understanding. Ryan turned to me, his fingers brushing against mine. "We don't have to do this," he said softly. "If you're uncomfortable, we can just stay, enjoy the night, and go home together." I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of hesitation. But all I saw was openness, patience, and something else, excitement. He was curious, just like I was. I exhaled slowly, feeling a mixture of nerves and something I couldn't quite name. "And if I say yes?" I asked quietly. Ryan's lips curled into a small smile. "Then we see where the night takes us, together." A warm flush spread through me. I had always thought of marriage as something strict, a bond that couldn't be shared, in any way. But standing here, seeing the love in Ryan's eyes, I realized this wasn't about breaking anything. It was about experiencing something new while still being completely his. Jake's voice broke through my thoughts. "For those of you open to this," he said, holding up his glass, "we'll make it easy. We'll keep things respectful, let people connect naturally, and remember that this is about trust. No pressure, no expectations, just a chance to explore." Few people raised their glasses, and I hesitated before lifting mine slightly. Ryan did the same, his eyes locked onto mine. Jake grinned. "Let's enjoy the night." The tension in the air shifted. It was no longer just an ordinary gathering. It was something else, something thrilling. The couples began mingling in a different way now, their touches more lingering, their conversations deeper. The energy of the room changed, filled with unspoken promises. Lisa took my hand gently. "Come with me," she said, leading me toward a quieter corner. Ryan gave me a reassuring nod, and I followed Lisa, my pulse racing. The night had only just begun, and I had no idea where it would lead. Lisa led me to a quiet corner of the room, away from the others. My heart was still racing, my mind spinning with thoughts I had never considered before tonight. The air between us felt charged, and for the first time, I saw her in a different light. Her confidence, her warmth. It was intoxicating. She handed me a fresh glass of wine, her fingers grazing mine for just a second. "You're nervous," she said softly, studying my face. I let out a shaky breath. "A little." "That's normal," she said with a reassuring smile. "The first time is always the hardest. Your mind tells you one thing, but your body, it feels something else, doesn't it?" I swallowed, unsure how to respond. She wasn't wrong. Despite my hesitation, there was a strange excitement coursing through me. The idea of stepping outside my comfort zone, of experiencing something completely new. It scared me, but it also intrigued me. "How did you do it?" I asked. "The first time?" Lisa took a sip of her drink, tilting her head slightly. "Jake and I talked about it for a long time. We set rules, made sure we were both comfortable. The first time was slow, careful, but after that, we realized something. It didn't take anything away from us. It made us closer." I glanced across the room and found Ryan talking to another woman, one of the wives from our group of friends. He wasn't touching her, just listening intently, his expression open and engaged. He looked happy, not distant, not detached, just present. "Doesn't it feel strange?" I asked. Lisa smiled knowingly. "It's different, yes, but the truth is, desire doesn't take away love. It can exist alongside it. And sometimes, sharing something new with someone else makes you appreciate what you already have even more." I let her words sink in. Maybe love wasn't just about possession. Maybe it was about trust, about letting go of the fear that wanting something new meant losing what you already had. Lisa reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Her touch was soft, delicate. "You don't have to do anything tonight," she whispered. "But if you want to, just let yourself feel." The heat in her gaze sent a shiver through me, and for the first time that night, I let myself stop thinking. I let myself just be in the moment. I turned my head slightly, catching Ryan's eyes from across the room. He was watching me now, his expression unreadable but intense. There was no jealousy, no anger, just curiosity, maybe even encouragement. Took a deep breath and looked back at Lisa. The night was still young, and I was beginning to wonder just how far I was willing to go. The night continued, and the atmosphere in the room had shifted completely. What once felt like a simple gathering of friends now carried an undeniable tension, one filled with curiosity, excitement, and something deeper, something unspoken. Could feel my heart pounding in my chest as Lisa's words lingered in my mind. Just let yourself feel. It was such a simple statement, yet it carried so much weight. For years, I had believed that love and passion only existed in one form, between two people bound by vows and commitment. But now, as I stood in this room, watching couples move closer, watching Ryan across the room as he spoke with another woman, I realized that maybe there was more. Lisa was still beside me, her presence both comforting and electrifying. She didn't push, didn't demand anything. She simply let me process everything at my own pace. I took a slow sip of my wine, my fingers trembling slightly against the glass. "Tell me what you're thinking," Lisa said softly, her voice smooth like silk. I exhaled, forcing myself to put my emotions into words. "I don't know," I admitted. "I feel nervous, but also curious. It's like part of me wants to take a step forward, but the other part keeps holding me back." She nodded in understanding. "That's normal. You've been taught one way your whole life, and now you're seeing something different. But the question is, do you trust yourself enough to explore it?" I hesitated. "And what about Ryan? What if—" Lisa cut me off with a gentle smile. "Look at him," she said, tilting her head toward my husband. I turned my gaze toward Ryan, who was still deep in conversation with the woman. Emily, I remembered now. She was beautiful, with dark brown hair and a soft, inviting smile. But what caught my attention wasn't their conversation or the way she leaned in slightly toward him. It was the way Ryan looked at me. His blue eyes locked onto mine, filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't just love. It was admiration, excitement. He wasn't ignoring me, wasn't distant. If anything, he looked at me as if he wanted me even more. A shiver ran down my spine, and something inside me shifted. Lisa must have noticed because she leaned in closer, her lips near my ear. "You don't have to be afraid," she whispered. "Ryan isn't losing you. If anything, he's seeing you in a new light, and maybe you're seeing him differently too." I swallowed hard. She was right. Slowly, I turned back to her, my pulse quickening. Her lips were slightly parted, her expression open, patient. She was waiting for me to decide, not forcing anything. I took a deep breath, then finally allowed myself to let go. Reaching out, I traced my fingers lightly along her wrist, testing the feeling. Lisa smiled, leaning into my touch, and the warmth of her skin sent a thrill through me. She moved slowly, carefully, giving me time to adjust as she lifted her hand to my cheek, her fingers brushing against my skin. "See?" she murmured. "It doesn't have to be scary." I exhaled, realizing that for the first time that night, I wasn't thinking about what was right or wrong. I wasn't thinking about guilt or expectations. I was just feeling. From across the room, I felt Ryan's gaze still on me, and when I turned to look at him again, his lips curled into a small smile. He wasn't upset. He wasn't pulling away. If anything, he looked proud. And in that moment, I knew I was ready to take the next step. The energy in the room had changed completely. What had started as a simple gathering of friends had turned into something more, a space filled with unspoken desires, quiet understandings, and an openness that I had never experienced before. My heart was still racing, my body alive with sensations I hadn't expected. Lisa's touch lingered on my skin, light and teasing, as if she was waiting for me to make the next move. I had spent the night trapped between hesitation and curiosity. But now something inside me had shifted. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't overthinking every moment. I was simply letting myself be in the experience. Ryan was still across the room, watching me, but not with jealousy or concern. His expression was something else entirely: pride, excitement, maybe even arousal. The connection between us was still there, unbroken, and in a strange way, even stronger than before. Lisa leaned in, her voice soft and intimate. "You're glowing," she whispered. I let out a nervous laugh. "I feel different." She smiled knowingly. "Because you're allowing yourself to feel without fear. And that's beautiful." Her fingers brushed against mine again, a silent invitation rather than a demand. My breath hitched slightly, but I didn't pull away. Instead, I let myself lean into her warmth, let myself enjoy the way her presence made me feel. A movement caught my attention, and I turned just in time to see Ryan approach. He was no longer with Emily, though I could see her in the background, engaged in quiet conversation with someone else. His steps were slow, purposeful, his eyes locked onto mine. Lisa noticed him too, and a knowing smile played at her lips. "I'll give you two a moment," she murmured before stepping back, disappearing into the crowd. Ryan stopped in front of me, his gaze intense. "Are you okay?" I exhaled, realizing that despite everything, I felt more than okay. I felt alive. "I am," I admitted. "More than I expected to be." He reached out, his fingers brushing against my arm. "You were beautiful to watch," he said, his voice low and full of something that made my stomach tighten. I swallowed hard. "And you? Did you?" He nodded slightly. "I talked with Emily for a while. Nothing more than a kiss, but it was different, exciting. But even while I was with her, all I could think about was you." A rush of warmth spread through me. There it was, the reassurance I didn't even realize I needed. We were still us. No matter what happened tonight, we were still connected. I took a step closer, my body responding to his in a way that felt both familiar and entirely new. "So what now?" I whispered. Ryan's lips curled into a slow smile. "That's up to you." For the first time all night, I felt completely in control. not just of the situation, but of myself. I wasn't acting out of obligation or expectation. I was making a choice, and I was ready to see where it would take me. The night had unfolded in ways I never could have imagined. The air in the room was thick with excitement and warmth, a quiet hum of conversations and shared experiences surrounding us. My body still buzzed with the lingering touch of Lisa's hand, the memory of her soft words playing over in my mind. And now, standing in front of Ryan, I felt a new kind of energy between us. Something deeper, more intense. I had stepped into the unknown tonight, hesitating at first, but now I felt different. Freer. More alive. I looked up at my husband, the man I had shared so much of my life with, and in his eyes, I didn't see distance or doubt. I saw admiration, desire, a silent question. I reached for his hand, intertwining my fingers with his. "Let's go somewhere quiet," I whispered, needing to be close to him, to ground myself in what had always been ours. Ryan didn't hesitate. He nodded, squeezing my hand as he led me toward one of the side rooms, away from the soft glow of the main gathering. As we stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind us, the air between us changed again. It was just the two of us now, away from the glances and the whispers. Just us. He turned to me, his hand settling gently on my waist. "Talk." "To me," he murmured, his voice low and full of emotion. "Tell me how you feel." I took a deep breath, letting the words come naturally. "I was scared at first," I admitted. "I didn't know if I could do this, if I could open myself up to something so different." I paused, searching his face. "But now, I feel like I understand something I never did before." His thumb brushed over my hip, his touch familiar and yet charged with new energy. "And what's that?" I swallowed, my heart racing. "That love isn't about control or rules, it's about trust, about knowing that no matter what happens, you and I are still us." His expression softened, and I saw the love in his eyes before he even spoke. "That's exactly how I feel." Relief and warmth washed over me. We had walked into this night uncertain, not knowing how it would change us. And yet, standing here now, I felt closer to Ryan than I had in years. Slowly, he reached up, cupping my face in his hands. "You were incredible tonight," he murmured. "Seeing you like that, watching you let go, it made me want you even more." A shiver ran down my spine, heat pooling deep inside me. "Then show me," I whispered. That was all the invitation he needed. His lips met mine in a slow, deep kiss, one filled with both passion and reassurance. His hands roamed my body, rediscovering me in a way that felt new and yet so achingly familiar. Every touch, every breath between us carried the weight of the night's experiences, the thrill of something different, yet the comfort of what we had always been. As we sank into each other, the world outside faded away. The party, the whispers, the new connections. They had all been part of the journey. But this moment, here in his arms, was the destination. Tonight had changed us, but not in the way I had feared. It hadn't pulled us apart. It had brought us back to each other, stronger than before. And as Ryan's lips trailed down my neck, his hands pulling me closer, I realized something. I had never felt more wanted, more cherished, or more alive.